Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Digital Transformation Bytes, the podcast that covers everything in the digital transformation world, software, tech, and everything in between. Today, I'm really pleased to say I've been joined by Dr. Ip-Shing, who is a senior lecturer in enterprise systems at Cranfield University. Dr. Fan, please say hello.
Oh, well, hello everybody.
Uh, excellent. So, Dr. Fan, your work focuses a lot in aviation, which we can tell by your background today. It's a lovely picture in the background. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and what you do at Cranfield University?
Will do. Um, I am a manufacturing industrial engineer by training. So by skill set, my set of eyes is to look for how do we make things more effectively. And Cranfield, where I work, for those who don't know, is on the site of Second World War Air Force Station. We have a full operational runway. We have a full air traffic control. We also have, through our commercial vehicle, the license to design and make aircraft. So, for instance, the first hydrogen-fueled electric-powered aircraft, the one with zero avia, was converted and test flown in Cranfield.
Wow.
And within the campus and the runway, we are the first UK airport to use virtual control tower, so that our air traffic control tower is in a nice aircon room with panoramic screen to control the airspace above and the traffic on the ground, not sitting in the glass box. And the kind of tool set that they have, they can actually monitor and see the aircraft much better in all kinds of weather condition. So that's kind of the environment I'm in. And right now, the area I focus on is how to get efficiency from the aviation aftermarket. So when an aircraft is sold to an airline or business jet operator, we expect it to be used for 20, 25 years. And during its life, it needs all the maintenance, all the regulatory thing to make sure it is safe for the passenger. And amongst those work, there's huge amount of paper because that's the way that we did it 70 years ago when we started the industry. But at the same time, a lot of work that is happening to make sure that things are safe. And so opportunities for us to use technology to improve it is important. And on behind me is actually outside my office. So we have an open canopy hangar with different intelligent technology to look at automation of maintenance. We also have our ground-based 737, a retired aircraft from British Airways that we use as our research vehicle, really. But it is not just the aircraft frame and all the things that is inside. We also have its 20 years worth of maintenance and technical record. So when we think about how do we look at predictive maintenance, how do we find different better ways of doing things, we have that original historic reference, and then we can build concepts, technology to fit the purpose of industry today. Of course, on a sales pitch side, I also run the Aviation Digital Technology Management MSc course, trying to train people to fill that skills gap that we desperately need.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that's where the relationship comes from between Cranfield and Interware, because obviously, that's how we've got involved with you guys. And just a quickie for everyone, there is a video on the Interware website or the YouTube channel that actually shows Cranfield and shows some of the stuff they do and some of the inspection work they do in that and as well. And I think when, Dr. Fans build a lovely picture there, but the actual scale of the operation is amazing. We've sent a team there and to see the different elements and the different technologies they're using, plus I suppose the real life assets they have to play with, the plane itself being the aircraft behind being one of them. And that's where I suppose Workflow Plus, which is what obviously Interware provide, Cranfield University use that for inspections. And that formulates a good first question for a digital transformation Bytes. And it's quite a wide question, because I always ask everyone, what does digital transformation mean to you? Because any sector, any sort of conversion of anything you're doing manually to a digital process, is digital transformation. You know, I quite use that reference that, you know, the old-fashioned tills you used in retail, now they're digital. Some of these shops now just take card only, so it's completely converting it to a digital. But for you and for your working world, Dr. Fan, what does digital transformation mean for you?
I would put it as two different aspects, and then there's one core. In the aviation industry context, in the days when we begin to have significant commercial aviation, and I mentioned 70, 80 years ago after the Second World War, those were the days before we have computer.
Yeah.
And in order to make sure things are safe, we need to write down all the instructions and record and keep those records. Got to remember, not only we don't have computers, we don't have mobile phones. Telephones were a bit of a luxury. And so getting the information to and fro real time was not quite a possibility then. However, those early aviation pioneers designed the system so that we are safe to operate throughout time and continue to be safe. So safety is paramount in what we do, but it had been burdened with a lot of paper.
Yeah.
And for the technical record of our aircraft, 20 years, not that long, I have 108 big boxes of those records that I keep in the container. So I was explaining to students when they come, those who do well can work on the computer. Those who fail, they go to the container and work on the paper.
Yeah, they have to find one file out of the all the boxes, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. So this piece of moving from paper to digital information is one piece of what I call the informatics part of digitalization. But at the same time, throughout the years, while we were relying on human to do things and move things and fix things, today's with camera systems, robotics, location systems, we can do a lot of that with help that can supplement the people's eyes and hands, and especially in weather condition where it is awkward and difficult. There's a lot that we can do with more the hardware side of the automation. So there's, to me, the informatics and then this cyber physical side of digitalization that we can do.
Yeah.
But sitting down the core when we work with our industrial partner, I think it's the culture, mindset, and the people that is more fundamental. With its long history of safe operation, our colleagues in industry would be really not wanting to disrupt any of those safety operation procedures.
Yeah.
However, that means that changing way of doing things is a bit difficult, and getting the people with the right mindset as well as the skills to use what we can do now and make an impact to business is sitting at the core, so that while the technology for informatics, technology for cyber physical exists and had been perhaps well used in other industry, to bring it into aviation need this people and culture change.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think you say that, and you know, obviously, you know, Dr. Fan, I deal with various sectors, aviation being one, automotive, oil and gas, energy, utilities, and that sort of thing. And I see that consistency, you know, where, you know, digital transformations happened a lot. It's happened a lot in certain areas of business. You know, aviation is the same. The actual sales process in aviation is completely digital now. You know, you think when you book your flights, you think of EasyJet, you think of Ryanair as probably two of the e-commerce pioneers. That whole process now is completely digital. You know, we don't even print it off now. You can show your boarding pass on your mobile and you go through. And I see that in a lot of, and that's a B2C environment, obviously, but I see that in a lot of B2B environments as well, where obviously, you know, CRM systems and all that sort of thing is digital. So you're putting your client's name in digitally. It produces information. It produces reminders. It's using maybe some sort of basic AI to tell you little things and what you could do in that. But it hits that point, and do you see it from a, you know, from the operational point of view, from the inspection point of view, from the maintenance point of view, in all those sectors? I still see that mindset, as you mentioned. I still see sometimes different skill sets available. So people naturally go back to, oh, this has always worked for us. This is the way we've always done it. You know, this does work. Do you see the aviation industry evolving through digital transformation? Are you seeing it at all, or is it hitting that blocker, or is it that generational change that you mentioned with the students coming through? Do you think that will be the driver to change digital transformation further in the operational side?
That is a brilliant question, because essentially what we are seeing is probably at the edge of a major significant change, and
Yeah,
this primarily brought about by COVID. During COVID, where nobody can fly, there was significant change in the industry, and we lost a lot of experienced people.
yeah,
And as we try to ramp up the travel capacity, actually, not only aircraft, it's the people who become the major constraint. And right now, looking at this summer of traffic demand, we probably have a demand higher than pre-2019.
yeah,
However, the number of planes are not quite there. Whatever is the other incidents, but one bit of that is that we don't have enough engineering effort to bring the planes that we put in storage to all of them into a flying condition. Um, we are talking about supply chain problem, not necessarily because of material, but because we don't have enough people to actually
yeah,
make parts and ship the parts out. Um, and pilots, cabin crew, ground crew, all of the different skill sets have serious shortage of people. And it's a
wow,
shortage of people that is driving the industry to say, we just don't have the people. We need to do some automation. We need to do significant automation. So in the last 12 months, after the finance of the post COVID begin to settle, we are beginning to see and hear about a lot more of the significant investment
yeah,
in the digitalization, in the automation, and we're expecting to see huge movement in the next 4 or 5 years. My major concern is that, having lost all the experienced people, or significant portion of it, we may be able to spend good money and bring them back in as consultants at some point. Um, we also require that understanding and skill to deliver
yeah,
the automation project. And this skill bit, the passing of the knowledge and creating new knowledge and new way of working, is going to be the most complicated bit that aviation industry have to navigate in the next few years.
yeah. I think it's interesting. I think that's that. You know, I think the automation, I think, is a great point, because you and I know that, and obviously you've seen it, and I see it in various sectors, that with automated workflows, digital processes, you know, taking inspections and data from one source and then putting it into a mobile connected way of working, you know, can drive productivity 200, 300%. So it is a way of covering, if you used to have two people, now you've only got one, you know, you can still achieve the same things, because you take a lot of the wastage and a lot of the downtime out of it by using digital processes. Because as we know, there's a lot of industries, and I think aviation is one, that yes, the data may start in some sort of digital source, but there's still an element of producing a working card or producing an inspection form is then going out and being done by pen and paper, which naturally means someone has to come back in to type it up to then send it back to its original source, which in this day and age, if you work in digital transformation, is very, very counterproductive. But you know, change takes its time. I think it's interesting that you talk about that skills shortage, and that, and I suppose the intellectual property, and that intellectual property is wide, because like you said, is you new people come into the market, and like everything, if you talked about cars and planes, the ones that are being produced today and then going out for their testing and then go into the live stream, I'd imagine, are very, very technically advanced. But the planes that you said like a life cycle of 25 years, the planes that are, I suppose, 15 years into their life are going to be slightly different. Same as a car. You know, a car that was produced 15 years ago doesn't have all the modifications that a car that's being produced in 2024 has. How do you think they can bottle that? Now, I know you can bottle that intelligence into processes, into workflows, but how do you think they're going to bottle that and distribute that across the network of these new engineers coming through?
I don't think anybody have a clear picture yet. At the moment, we are really trying to recruit enough people to go through a training school and then pass that knowledge on. Some of those will be defined, and some of those defined process will give a great foundation to make a starting point. But a lot of the uncertainty, especially in the maintenance world, is that events may happen, there may be hidden corrosion or something else happening. There may be a leak of something that it is in while
Yep.
the aircraft is totally safe. But until you open up the panel, you cannot be sure what you're going to see.
No.
And all those judgment, while we can supplement it with video and photos to help people to understand, quite a lot is accumulated through having worked through those cases
Yeah.
over the years and know what is happening. So how do we fully capture all these? It's not something that we know. Sometimes it's not in things that we see. I know with the Interware product, we are really enjoying our way to be able to practice it at some point. However, in the detection is sometimes the smell, some
Yeah.
hearing the sound. Sometimes it's just you go near that place and something is not right. We
Yeah.
can't easily replicate it with the best of the VR technology that we have today.
Yeah.
So how do we fully get all that sense? I don't really know. But in terms of making sure that all the steps are in place and people have the reminder that, okay, let's kind of make sure we do this step and then keep the record that the step is done, that gives us a great framework to ensure that we cover as much as we can think about, and those best practices would be a good starting point to capture. And then the subtle tacit knowledge information that enrich the instructions in each of the steps, they are going to be a little bit more tricky. And I think that's a combination of as much as we can, if we have some of the newer workforce partnered with the uh, people who are having that experience and share that, I think that would be really useful. Will it be a showstopper? I don't think so, because we are human and we're immeasurably flexible and teachable. All the things we get from those knowledge is because we have done it before. So there may be a certain period that we need to double up our scrutiny to make sure that we have that check correctly done. But then over maybe 4 or 5 years, we gain the experience to be able to handle these variety of situations. So we talk about knowledge as an important bit, but again, once we open it up, there are a lot of things we can do, a lot of things that we know it will just take time.
Yeah, and that is it's an evolving world, and I think it's interesting to hear that challenge, and it is kind of the irony where I think there's a lot of industries that have seen the positives that off the back of COVID because it's driven them to work remotely, and I think what's different is in some sectors the world moved on for them in COVID, and they still had to produce, they still had to make, and it wasn't affected in the same way the aviation industry was, which was, let's be honest, there was almost a grinding for a
So
long time, which then stops manufacturing because people aren't purchasing planes. And if you had agreements in place with Boeing or someone to buy new aircrafts and new assets, you're going to say, look, we're going to have to pause that for 2 years. So everything knocked back for the aviation industry. And it was one of those industries where people seeked other employment and went to other industries because they had to. So it is interesting because that's what a lot of industries have done. They're taking senior engineers now, and senior engineers are almost working in that lean process, which is they're looking at a process, it's gone to digital. Then they realize that actually the way we've always done it isn't correct, and you could do it a slightly different way in digital. And then you're putting all those digital assets, all that information into that process, into that digital workflow, and then passing it on to that junior engineer. But like you and I have spoke about in the past, I suppose there's so much customization as well in the aviation industry. And I suppose One of the examples that we've discussed in the past is you have one plane that could be exactly the same being used by a completely different airline, which then means the internals of that plane is customized to what their need is, whether that's the entertainment packages, the food, etc., etc. But also, I suppose the customization that if you have someone like Alaskan Airlines who's flying out of Seattle to Alaska every single day, snow, ice, and salt, if you have someone that's flying out of Morocco or Tunis in Tunisia and that, a completely different challenge to the maintenance of the plane. So again, it's trying to bottle all that up for the future generations to really look. And like you said, you cannot get away from the human element, which is a gut feeling. It's almost a gut feeling. I know this plane. I've worked on this plane so many times. This problem's happening. I think these are the 4 or 5 things to check. So if we can get to that stage, do you see, artificial intelligence in the future where what a lot of people are using AI for now is almost becoming that intelligence, because they've taken data sets built on thousands of inspections, thousands of maintenances, and then saying, actually, I think the 3 most common problems could be A, B, or C. Do you see that creeping into the future of the way maintenance is done?
Oh, definitely. That is a big movement on predictive maintenance that is happening in this industry now. That if we can actually have better warning of things that may go wrong, we can actually do things earlier and avoid disruption. So AI is a very broad term. We can open it up into many different things. I was with aviation supply chain company yesterday, and because of the history of experience in tear down repair they have of the many different component type, they have a really nice way of using the data analytics and generate consumption pattern of spare parts, and they can also feed into the predictive warning of when things need to be checked, when things need to be replaced. So a lot of these making more clever use of the information is happening. So they sit into my informatics box of the digitalization happening today. And it'll be leaps and bounds going on, I would say, in the 4 or 5 years. The challenge when I work with colleagues in that space, again, is people. A lot of the engineers and engineering specialists that we now have, they're trained as maintenance engineer to start their career. Mathematics, statistics, programming was not part of their skill set when they start their career. So now, to take on board the new informatics AI solution, they need to have sufficient understanding of those to marry up with their knowledge of the aircraft. And it's not always straightforward. And again, it would be difficult to generalize. Each airline operation have different sets of people. And we are working with some of our friends to see how best we can create that merger of the understanding. So by training, by recruiting new talents, or creating cross-functional team, so that the aviation engineering can take full advantage of the digital solution. It's something that we need to do. I want to explain it so people can understand that going digital is not totally press the button and straightforward. But I don't want to get across the wrong idea that they are showstopper. It's just that these are the things that we need to do in order to achieve the transformation.
Yeah, you're right, and I think with anything in digital transformation, and anyone listening, it's a path. You have to start somewhere, and then you start with processes, and then it's amazing. Like I said, with a lot of people I speak with, and it's just taking out that second stage. We mentioned it earlier in the call about doing something and then having to regurgitate what you've done to put into a system. That itself is a great first step in digital transformation, just to do that, create data, create a report, create a process in digital, and then you just don't have to type it up again. Productivity gains that are massive, and then what you find is you can build off the back of those things very, very quickly. And you mentioned, you know, BI and analytics, business intelligence and analytics, which is a great start as well. And I think that is the here and now for a lot of good organizations, where you can create real-time analytics, which is massively important, because I think creating that business intelligence and real-time analytics gives you the ability to, like you said, start that predictive journey. It's those data sets, it's that information now that you start collecting. I think that 3 or 4 years down the line, especially on larger organizations where, like you said, you might have these inspections happening in various elements of the world, various elements of the country, all that information being gathered in will be that future information that you can use for styles of AI, because then you can build those data sets and see that consistency that's being done. So you've got the predictive maintenance and the predictive analytics and the real-time analytics now, and then obviously, like you said, using whatever algorithms work or whatever process works in the future. When you are doing digital processes and you're going out to do an inspection, there is nothing to stop you in the future using those data sets to drive information in. But it's that first step. And I think that's what a lot of organizations need to do, is drive that first step, because that is the future way of working. And it will be interesting. So I suppose we're talking about AI in the future and that sort of thing. As what sort of attitudes do your students walk into with this world? Because I know what you guys do, and I think the tools you have and the way you're doing things and the way you're looking at things, not many airlines, not many, I suppose some of the manufacturers of the technology but won't be working in the same sort of way you guys are and using all these new tools that are available. So how do these students come in? Is it an expectation to, well, this is the way we should be working now? Because, you know, I've used pen and paper, the older generation have used pen and paper. I'm sure some of the generation who are still retiring have probably used microfilm and microfiche for inspections and finding that. But this new generation, in a social world, in a mobile world, and everything's remotely connected, what sort of attitudes do they come into you with?
I think it's really interesting. Cranfield's master's is only a 1-year journey. So we have very limited time. But essentially, with the students that we have, they come in October, is then starting their own personal transformation journey. I'm fortunate enough that the majority of the students who come on our program are those which they have an interest in aviation. They may not study aviation or aeronautics before, they may have computing and other background, some other engineering, but they do want to be able to work in the aviation industry. So for us, we are then designing a program so that they learn enough about the aircraft, the aviation industry, what work, why do things work and why do things not work? Is it regulation? Is it real technology? Is the complexity of the aircraft? And that is one part. And I think that is an important bit, so we can root them into the reality. And then we begin to get the way that technology can go into place. We do a lot of work with our industrial partners, visits to airlines, operating centers. We were at this supply chain house because until we have the part, your maintenance workforce will be waiting. And all these are components we exposed to. And so they begin to understand from a very high level, I want to be transforming the aviation industry, to what are the specifics that become interesting. So at this journey, we are setting them off into their group projects. Right now, it started last week. So for the next 3 months, I have one team working on predictive maintenance and how industry can use them, using example data that we get from our industrial collaborator. Another stream working on what are the automation technology to go into MRO, so it can be hangar informatics, and again working with industrial collaborators who are running as well as building new maintenance hangars. So give them that opportunity to put their thinking into the practical use, not just think about it, need to do something. So I think from the point of view of expectation, when they start, they probably don't know that much,
Yeah.
Just know that they want to be in there somewhere, but in the rest of the journey, then I'm expecting them to actually find their role, find the opportunities. Last year, we only have a very small cohort of three. Two of
Yeah.
them have a job to go to before or very soon after they graduate. The third one, I think, is now going to be settled in a really good role. Probably last week. I just haven't heard the news.
No, fingers crossed.
So there's a lot of skills need, a lot of opportunity for the people. But I think what they are able to bring to whoever who take them on is this combined mindset, knowing the aircraft and industry and knowing where the technology opportunities are, and having the right soft skill to work with people in a team, because we will be expecting to work with people who are less enthusiastic about the transformation, as well as those who are very enthusiastic. So we want to create a person who can actually bring everybody together.
Yeah.
It's
And
a journey.
yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. That's I suppose any work environment's exactly the same. You have different skill sets, you have different personalities, and trying to marry those up. And I think it's interesting for me because is it that next generation working with the older generation that will help formulate those changes as they develop in their careers. Do you see a lot of your students after they've completed the courses and they go on to employment taking any of these digital ideas or these technological ideas and then driving it into the work environment where they go to work?
Well, that is their role, and quite often when we talk to colleagues who want to recruit, that's what they are looking for.
Yeah.
Because in the way that the changes happen is going to need different way of thinking. One interesting example was that we have a team of young apprentices from one of our industrial partner coming to do some work on our 7.3.
Yeah.
And we have an experienced engineer leading them. They get to the part that they were going to inspect the attachment of the nose landing gear. So there's a hole in there, somebody needs to poke up. So the experienced engineer say, in doing this, we have this mirror and the long stick, and that's how we're going to inspect it. And then one young lad bring out his mobile phone, put on flash, snap, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so we are
And
not
again, you go
changing
do a
any of the aviation
360.
rules,
Yeah.
but life becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. And that's it. But that's it. That's a great example. It's only a very small thing, but like you said, you could do it with a selfie stick, and you could even do a 360 picture if you wanted to as well on the right phone with the right app and that sort of thing, and take a free 360. And that's it. Yeah. And I suppose that is the benefits of digital, isn't it? You could take that digital asset away, then add that to reports, and it's forever there, as we know, is a big thing. But yeah, with that enthusiasm and with that education and moving forward, the hope is naturally that the challenges we spoke about earlier, as we go over those challenges and that information and education and experience is saved and you become more digital. If you look at, I suppose there has been recent incidents in the aviation industry, and there always will be incidents in anything with assets. Do you see that generation driving digital transformation? Can you see that those sorts of issues being avoided in the future and safety and that increasing over time?
I would expect that to be changing leaps and bounds. Now, with incidents until the official report come out, it would be unfair to attribute what actually happened. But for me, I came from a manufacturing background. So back in the 80s, 90s, that was the start of the manufacturing lean journey and the transformation. It took good number of years, but today, if you go to the good, well-organized manufacturing organization, a lot of the business transformation, the use of digital, the quality of product output, and the way that the people mindset have been changed to do things is very, very good. Arguably, the good transformed manufacturing operations are something like 15, 20 years ahead of aviation aftermarket support at this point in time. So while there's a lot of things that we see as challenges, things we're working with this section of the industry, we know that it can work. I think that's one of the reasons I've kind of changed from manufacturing into this particular sector. This sector have a lot of, well, Cranfield people are passionate about air, so that's a given. But
Yeah.
in this sector, there's a lot of things which are, if we do the right thing, learning from the experience we had in the transformation of manufacturing and other industry, there are loads of easy cherries to pick.
Yeah.
And we can actually do a lot of change with the right amount of mindset and people in a very short period. And it wouldn't take aviation this long time to achieve the manufacturing transformation that we saw. So it's an exciting time. There's a lot that we can do, but we'll just be wise in picking the cherries that are easy enough to get the return, put that investment back into the next step, and keep that journey going. And what is also extremely exciting in the air world is that it's not just the aircraft that we see today. We are
Yeah.
talking about hydrogen. We're talking about electric aircraft. We're talking about urban air taxi,
Yeah.
drone delivery. These new aviation systems is going to open up a lot of opportunities to inject the right idea in at the inception of the system, rather than we are playing catch up with 80 years of legacy for the commercial aircraft today. So it's a really exciting place to be in.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was going to ask about that, what you see in the future. I recently spoke to someone in the automotive industry, and we got onto that conversation of self-drive cars, and how we've always bought cars has been one way. Servicing of cars has changed now. If you buy modern cars, they're more advanced than the average computer now, where obviously it can tell you this, it tells you when your tires are down, tells you how many miles you should go and do this service, your oil's here, this and this, etc., etc. And the same challenges for them, mind, because there are cars that are 50 years old that some people still want to drive and keep. So same challenges around how you maintain the new. But we got on to what was the future, and that's a good question, I think. And you kind of gave a few examples there. What is the future? Do is it the same sort of model and setup in 10, 15, 20 years time that we see now, and hasn't changed dramatically? Obviously what's underneath the hood of the plane and how you inspect and maintain the plane's changed, but the principles and the actual delivery of the service hasn't changed dramatically from the outside in, if that makes sense. So what do you see the future of the aviation industry? Is it going to be I hope it's not, if I'm on a plane, but is it going to be self-flight planes with no captains and etc., etc.?
Well, there will be still human involved.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with technology. It's much more that we can't put a computer in jail, and we can't
Yeah.
ask the computer to pay 250 million pounds fine. So we have
Yeah.
a human there. However, a lot of the humans' work would become a lot easier with the automation that we're bringing in. There will be some learning steps that we go through, but in the main, I would say aviation is more driven by the desire of people like you and me to travel.
Yeah.
Unless we get to the point of teleporting,
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
aircraft, there will be the facilities and equipment to allow us to do what we want to do. That may change some of the form and shape, but the fundamental bit is to get us safely from point A to point B. The technology to deliver that, there will be changes. A lot of people are eyeing how the hydrogen and electric will bring about the aircraft technology change. My expectation is that they will come in, well, we'll have to wait at least 5, probably 10 years for us to have a significant hydrogen network.
Yeah.
But for the foreseeable future, the majority of the planes coming into service today would still be the planes that is serving us in the next 10, 15 years until the total new technology transition is going to replace the fleet in a significant number.
Yeah.
And so all the support work, maintenance work that we need to look after these generation of aircraft is likely to continue for the next 15, perhaps 20 years. There will be a continuous migration of new ways of working things, but a lot of the core thing that we see today is probably going to be roughly there. The individual experience, I'm sure, will be much improved, but the fundamental airframe, the engine type, the general servicing is probably going to stay roughly the same. And from the support need point of view, we will still need these people. So we're probably looking at servicing the same airframe, but the methods we service it and maintain it. If we can bring the new technology adoption, that's where the transformation can improve safety, reduce costs. So as flying customers, we can get to point A and B equally safe, but cheaper without so much of the hassles and probability of disruptions.
Yeah, I think that's it. What I have read about the new technology and the aviation, I think it's the same challenges for the consumer that every industry has, which is speed and convenience. Those are the two main ones, isn't it? It's always funny whenever anything new comes up, they always quote Heathrow to JFK, isn't it? It's how quick can it get from London to New York? And I suppose that's one of the bigger ones of the new technology. It's the speed of flight, I suppose, is one of the big factors, because like everything, every consumer these days wants everything at the best price, as convenient as possible to book it up, and then as quick as possible. So now it is interesting, and I'm very pleased to hear that not much will change, because I do prefer that human input when I'm flying anywhere, to be honest. So it's very much that industry 5.0, isn't it, where obviously using technology, using automation, using digital transformation to improve things, but very much the human being still very much at the center point in both the operation and the maintenance of the asset, which is good to hear, and is encouraging. And like you said, the legal side of things has made things interesting for Tesla a couple of times on the self-driving cars. So we'll leave that to the automotive industry, I think, for the time being, which is interesting. But it's been a great conversation around everything, and I suppose I think one of the things I'd like to close off with, if people are listening to this, Dr. Fan, and they feel a real interest to get involved or that, what advice would you give to someone moving into the digital transformation world in aviation or maybe another sector? What sort of advice from your experience would you give?
My advice is to kind of, first of all, identify your passion. And once you have that, then there's loads of different network and knowledge sources that you can engage, connect people on LinkedIn, maybe find suitable programs and courses, professional bodies to get to know. And I think in today's world, it's much more dynamic. So having the conversation with the people can open up ways and doors to do things. Of course, you're welcome to connect with me. My name is on there, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure the InfoWare team can share my contact email with the audience as well. So if people want to have a chat and understand more of what Cranfield do and the kind of direction that could be useful, we are more than happy to have the conversation and then see what goes out from there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think anyone wants to get involved in digital transformation, it is, because there's so many different elements. Today, we didn't really talk about digital twins, which I imagine plays a big part in aviation as well. Obviously creating digital versions of the assets and those sorts of things. So, there's so many different elements, and Dr. Fan is a great source of knowledge, which even I go to sometimes when I've always got questions as well, and he's good enough to help me out. But yeah, it's engaging that network, because there is so many elements, but it's taking that first step. Yeah, again, Dr. Fan, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure. And again, Dr. Fan's details are on there, so feel free to reach out to him. And for everyone else, I will see you on the next episode of Digital Transformation Bytes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.